To be honest, I'm kind of nervous about making this video. And it's not because I don't stand by what I'm going to say, or because I think I'll do a bad job. It's not even that I distrust my audience. I know for a fact my regular viewers can handle some very transgender opinions. But when I make videos, I always think about three people: myself, a subscriber, and someone who's brand new. That last one, the new viewer, is the one, no offense, I kind of worry about with this one. Especially when I'm being critical of ideas that may deeply resonate with them. So, if you're brand new and clicked on a video about degendering, let me say this up front. I adore my non-binary peers. People who live outside the binary are not my enemies. They're my friends. And I'm not here to take up arms against anyone who's gender expansive. In fact, studies show that trans people are more likely to be stereotyped as a group rather than our specific gender identity, meaning we are quite literally in this together. More on that later though. But before we go in depth on that, let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sunny Dionysus. I'm an artist, a video essayist, and most of all, an annoyance. I'm fascinated by our digital age and how fandoms shape and reshape the stories they love. Today, I'll be talking more about the trans struggle though. If that sounds appealing, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Back to the topic. I am a very feminine trans man. While I quote-unquote read to many people as some form of trans mask, I don't often get labeled specifically as a man. While this obviously does give me dysphoria because people assume instead of asking, I generally can bear the assumption at first. But when transphobes look me up and down in judgment when I come out, it's pretty clear what I'm working with. However, something I've learned over the years is that not everyone is going to state outright that they don't believe I'm a man. It's frustrating stating over and over and over that I use he, him pronouns. I get similar dysphoria with both she, her, and they, them. Because at the end of the day, either one, you don't see me as a man. It's so incredibly awkward when a friend falls over themselves when apologizing for misgendering me with she, her, but keeps using they, them in the future. Honestly, the phenomenon of cis people over-apologizing for mistakes makes me pretty uncomfortable. It puts me in the position of trying to make them feel better when I'm the party that is being apologized to. That may honestly be a good video idea. Let me know if you'd like to see that. In more academic terms, degendering is the process of removing or neutralizing gender distinctions in social settings. This can also be systemic. Removing the need for gender segregation in the bathrooms, using they, them with a huge asterisk, removing gender from legal documents such as passports. All things I am more or less in support of. Yes, a lot of binary trans people, including myself, find euphoria in gender-specific spaces. But I believe the bigger issue is how our society assumes gender is innate and uses that to divide us. I'm not saying we should abolish gender interpersonally. I'm saying that the structural separation of genders fuels discrimination. In fact, restroom-related stress contributes to anxiety, depression, and suicidality among trans people. A lot of non-binary and trans people avoid using the bathroom for fear of being hurt physically by a cis person, including me. Degendering institutions can, possibly, liberate us. Degendering individuals, though, especially without their consent, can harm us. There's a difference between dismantling societal gender roles and erasing gender identities. We need to know where that line is. Degendering is most powerful when it reduces harm, when it gives people more options, not fewer. But when it becomes a default lens that overrides individual identities, especially those of trans men and trans women, it stops being really liberatory. It starts feeling like erasure. If you've seen my last video about pronouns and forced outing, you'll know that I personally advocate for using gender-neutral pronouns when you don't know someone. But if they do, obviously use they, them. I still stand by that. I recommend heading over to that video for more context, so it won't be retreading ground here. When someone has to repeatedly correct others to use he, him, or she, her, and those corrections are ignored in favor of neutral pronouns or no pronouns at all, that's no longer inclusive. That's transphobic. Pronouns are non-negotiable for many trans people, and I would feel exactly the same if someone misgendered a non-binary person. Fun fact, I got called narcissistic for using he, him only and not they, them by a commenter. Fancy that. Anyways, in a particular study, providing pronouns reduced degendering for transgender women, but not for transgender men. Now, that does not mean that trans men are the only ones that get misgendered. Far from it. Trans women experience misgendering constantly. They face transmisogyny, which is its own layered form of violence. That's well documented in both lived experience and academic research. But I do think degendering is particularly common for trans men, and it's something I've personally seen and very much experienced. The study, while I do believe it was pretty in-depth, didn't explore why this disparity happens. And honestly, there could be a million reasons. I don't have the full picture, and as a trans man, I cannot speak for trans women. So if you're a trans woman or non-binary femme person watching this and you have thoughts, I'd love to hear them, like genuinely, let's talk. I'm trying to get across that trans people, depending on your gender or lack of, sometimes have different struggles depending on your community, gender, age, race, etc. This is not an American-only issue either. I encourage you to read the book, Black Genders and Sexualities, where, in chapter 11, Matbeni discusses how trans men get erased in feminist circles in Africa. While I really cannot speak for Africans, this is a genuinely important issue because when trans men get labeled as lesbians internationally, it not only misplaces trans men, but also makes sure we have a harder time advocating for ourselves, even with our non-trans peers. On page 188,
the Charter does not foreground women's diverse sexual orientations and gender identities, while Cal puts lesbian women at the forefront, and to some extent bisexual women and transgender women. Both are silent about transgender men.
This quote isn't exactly touching on degendering, but the chapter does, and it's still relevant. I am not critiquing or arguing against African feminism. Frankly, I am a white man in America. I don't have the authority or cultural context to do that. But I do want to talk about this and touch on it from their point of view. I don't want to frame this as an American-only issue. Transphobia is global. Its forms may differ, but the roots run deep everywhere. I also want to be clear about something else. This is a systemic pattern, a cultural reflex, that even well-meaning folks fall into. And like most things systemic, it's complicated. Sometimes it's a result of trauma. Sometimes it's about discomfort. Sometimes it's just someone trying not to mess up. But intent doesn't always equal impact when you're continually being corrected. Degendering is a form of misgendering, but that doesn't mean I blame non-binary people for it. I'm a feminine trans man, wearing skirts and taking testosterone. But when I get degendered, it is not my siblings' fault at all. It's the systems in place that try to progressively misgender me, for lack of a better term. I consistently urge some of my friends and acquaintances to stop using they, them for me. It's frustrating, but I can't take it out on fellow trans people who want to live as freely as I do. It tells me, even when they don't actively say it, that I quote unquote look non-binary, whatever that means. There's an assumption that masculinity is always oppressive, but trans men's relationships to masculinity can be complicated. We aren't upholding patriarchy by existing. We're navigating a gender that we weren't allowed to claim, and sometimes weren't even expected to survive. We all want a world where people aren't boxed in or punished for their gender. But let's make sure that in the process of tearing down the binary, we don't flatten the people who live in it. Degendering systems should expand our options, not overwrite them. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate 5,000 subscribers. Wow, I'm thrilled. I don't know how much to thank you. I hope this video is good. I also wanted to add that I have a Patreon now. You can support my work there directly. It's like a cool reoccurring tip jar that actually gives you things back. For $3 a month, you'll get early access to artwork, behind the scenes posts, sketches, and possible ramblings I cut from final video uploads. Polls where you help me pick future video topics or art prompts. A monthly commission raffle. Your name at the end of all my videos. But if you want to pay just $1 just to support me, that's really cool too. Thank you guys so much.